Hi, my name's Emma, and let's talk spooky stuff. Psychological drama horror thriller Hereditary hit cinemas everywhere in 2018, leaving viewers shocked, disturbed, and even some with nightmares. The film stars Toni Collette, Millie Shapiro, Gabriel Byrne, Alex Wolff, and of course, I would not neglect to mention my favorite, dark horse of all evil, Anne Dowd. While the film put director-writer Ari Aster on the map, it also brought forth a conversation that had been bubbling under the surface. What is elevated horror, and is this new trend here to stay? And deep in the horror community trenches, I still get comments every week talking about how much people either love this type of horror or utterly despise it. These are comments I get regularly talking about how much people hate the psychological direction that horror has taken, and they pine over the long-lost 80s slashers. Their words, not mine. If you've ever seen a video from me before and you've noticed the background, I'm sure you can tell which side I'm on. But this led to a lot of questions about Ari's approach to the genre. He is foremost a screenwriter, and he'd been writing scripts from a very young age. But he got to a stage where he realized he would only get satisfaction if he was to develop and direct those scripts himself. He has a very particular attention to detail. Toni Collette, who's been in the industry for a long time, said that Ari was the most prepared director that she had ever worked with. In fact, she wanted to steer away from horrors during this time, but read the script and was so compelled that she just had to be involved. I believe it's because it was obviously something very different. It was this elevated horror, which, as you can probably tell, I'm not a huge fan of the term. It seems a little bit pompous. Let me know if you can come up with something better that we can all use. But given the audience's reaction to the film, it was very obvious that they saw what Toni saw in the script. It was this elevated horror that had come into season. And Ari was asked about his style and approach to horror over and over in interviews. And time again, he answered that Hereditary, although is a horrific story, his aim was always to have it stand on its own as a rich family drama. Before shooting the movie, he screened a list of films to the crew, all that had haunting tones but were seen as genre-bending in their own right. Films like The Innocents and Onibaba. At its core, Hereditary is a serious drama, and it's about trauma and grief and how that affects the dynamics of a family. And Ari's inspiration for this film, of course, came from several sources, but the film that gets most of the credit and is mentioned over and over again is The Cook, The Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. Ari said in an interview with Birth Movies Death, which I will link below, that he had been disappointed with horror movies from the last couple of decades, but the films he finds the most effective are those that never allow him, the viewer, to move on. And The Cook, The Thief, The Wife, and Her Lover was a big inspiration because of how cold it was, how disturbing it is, and even commenting that he believes that the director, Peter Greenaway, must just be an evil person. Well, it's been almost half a decade since Hereditary came out, and I have not stopped thinking about the inspiration being this film, The Cook. It's really outstayed its welcome on my to-watch list, so today I thought we would check it out. I thought we could dive in right now. I'm going to do spoilers for this film. I just want to know what the fuss is about, and this is for those out there, you who have the morbid curiosity of what this film is and why it connects back to Hereditary. I'm really curious about how this disturbing film inspired this new classic. So here's the play-by-play of The Cook, The Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. Let's get into it. I'm warning you, this is gonna get downright ugly. The crime drama from 1989 takes place at the Le Hollandaise Gourmet restaurant, where we follow the story of none other than the cook, a thief, his wife, and her lover, whose lives intertangle, unleashing a shocking torrent of sex, food, murder, and revenge. And do they ever? It was the cast that first shocked me about this film. I have to say, I went in pretty blind. I was really surprised to see Helen Mirren, Tim Roth, and Michael Gambon, Dumbledore. I don't know if I'll watch a Harry Potter movie again after this. The film opens up to a soundscape riddled with anxiety, the crunching sounds of bones with a foreboding bass tone. Dogs are barking in distress as the score takes over, a theatrical theme to say the least. And like a play, we are stuck in a wide shot. Actually, this is the whole style of the film as we go set to set, or really scene to scene. It's similar to a live performance or a play. Of course, it does cut in throughout, but most of the scenes are wide, leaving you to feel a little bit like a voyeur in the situation. Or I really felt like Alex in A Clockwork Orange. I felt like I was almost getting tortured, forced to watch these horrendous scenes play out. Because from the get-go, it's disturbing. A man is brought in and attacked on the bonnet of a car and force-fed dog shit. They strip him naked while dogs fight in the background and then they piss on him. It's been 3 minutes. I'm already sick. The man they are attacking is a chef, but not the chef of the film. And the attack was brought on by a group of privileged men who are dissatisfied by their dinner. Their ringleader? The thief. From here we travel to the kitchen, and fun fact, each set in this film has a different color. And Helen Mirren, who is the wife, also changes her wardrobe with each set. The previous scene was blue, but now we're in the kitchen that is green. And we quickly learn that this is the thief's restaurant. He is an evil man whose ego is unmeasurable, and the cook is the only one who isn't afraid to stand up to him. The transition scenes in this film often have a soprano boy singing, in which if you do go and watch the film after this video, I do recommend watching it with subtitles because you can hear a lot of what he's singing, because the subtitles do show the lyrics and it's really interesting with the subtext. We drift into the restaurant and the tone is red, and it's quickly apparent that every character reflects this in their wardrobe. In the next scene, we meet the lover for the first time when the wife is having a rendezvous in the powder room. She's in her white attire, of course. The thing about this film is it starts with pure evil, and you just have this bubbling feeling of dread. You know nothing good is gonna happen. Obviously, you already know it's a disturbing movie, and when it starts like it did, it's only downhill from here. That's what I'm thinking is gonna happen. I mean, nothing good happens in a movie where in the first 3 minutes a man is covered in shit. And the tension in this scene in the powder room goes up several notches once the thief enters. And he has some really crude dialogue. In fact, the disgust in this film is 80% coming out of his mouth. He is a racist and sexist piece of shit, the embodiment of greed and evil. But back to the story. We transition to the next day where there's a beautiful sex scene intercut with the kitchen cutting up some food. The lover and wife again trying to get a quick one in, and I know it's been said before 100 times, but get a room. But her secret is really her power over the thief. It's her secret revenge. She returns to the table with her husband, and once he's had enough of throwing his weight around, he exits the restaurant drunk and incoherent with his wife and pulling the dish boy with him into the parking lot. Why? Because he can. Because power. And here it is inferred that he sexually assaults his wife and the boy runs away. Transition, another day has passed and we're back flowing from the kitchen into the dining room. The wife is covered in bruises and the men stare. This is when the thief first becomes suspicious of his wife and invites the lover, who is also coincidentally in the dining room, to their table. The thief challenges this mystery man, but he does not back down. In turn, the wife actually gets the guts to stand up to her husband and tells him that she is having an affair. Of course, she does not reveal it's to the lover, which he has met at this point. He pushes her out of the restaurant and they go into the car, where I would urge you to skip forward 20 seconds because as they take off from the car, there's a horrendous scene of them running over a dog. Transition to the next scene and we're halfway through the film. The wife is now covered in a headdress to hide all of the bruising, but some peeks through. Cut to her sneaking out to meet the lover in the back of the kitchen. But as this is happening, the thief wreaks havoc again on the diners, which leads into a woman revealing what he is unable to see. The wife is having an affair with the lover, the man that he has just met the night before. And naturally, he stabs the woman who has just told him this information with a fork to the face. He starts tearing apart the restaurant looking for the lovers, screaming and threatening to kill and eat the lover. This is an important detail. The two escape in a van of rotted meat, which is an interesting detail to this film. It's the textures. The lights bounce off different surfaces, allowing everything from the poop at the start to the rotting meat in the van to bring a grim and gritty feel to the film. This is where I see similarities to Hereditary. The lighting is a huge aspect in the film, from the abnormal amount of lamps to the sunset that illuminates Tony's face, and then there's of course all of the wide shots and texture. Without being grim, the ants, you know what I'm saying? And of course there's the nuts, which made me think about the kitchen scene earlier and how these cutting scenes in both of the films mirror each other. Back to the film, a day has passed again and the thief is torturing the young dish boy, trying to figure out where his wife is hiding. Unfortunately, the thief and his crude crew find the lover and begin to torture him. And he begins to fantasize about how this violent death is going to send some kind of message. Unfortunately, the lover dies. We then experience one of the more powerful moments in the film as the wife sits down with the dead body and tells him the story of what her husband would do to her on the daily. The details echoing in this cold and quiet room as she lays there helplessly telling her lover's dead corpse. It's the most peaceful scene in the film that shows the power of suggestion, allowing the viewer's brain to fill in the pieces and create their own imagery to match her story. She ends with a vow that it all must finish. The wife then goes to the cook with a bizarre request. Cook my lover. We cut to Friday, a private event in the restaurant. The wife is the host and the thief arrives after receiving an invitation. A group of people bring out a special concealed dish. They remove the cloth and of course it is the dead lover's body that is cooked like a turkey. The wife demands that the thief, her husband, eats the body, as he claimed he would when he told them after chasing them around the restaurant, I will kill you and I will eat you. She tells him to start with his It's a delicacy after all, and you know where it's been, wink. Music heightens as the crowd watches him struggling take his first bite. She shoots. She calls him a cannibal. The curtain falls. End of the film. The film was indeed depraved, and there's a lot I couldn't show you, from the dialogue to the visuals. But what most surprised me about the film was its unbothered tone, approaching the disturbing elements with little care. I mean, it was right out of the gate and it never let you off the hook. Its purpose seemed to be to shock. And by the way, I did watch the uncut original version. There is a version that cuts out 30 minutes of the film. The movie felt poetic or Shakespearean. It's a clear and concise story of evil, which I feel like Hereditary is not. All of the characters in the film you're unsure about. Of course, they're all flawed, but they all have reasonings to their grief and their reactions, and you're never really sure who is the good guy, because I feel like there really isn't any evil and good in that film. Although I do feel like Hereditary has a more satisfying approach to the film, as it's a mystery that's unwinding, and everything is out on the table in The Cook. And it never really feels satisfying because although justice does prevail, the damage is already done. I think that these films are very similar in the way they approach the stylization, the wide shots, the uncomfortable feeling that they both portray. I also feel like this film reminds me more of Midsommar in a way because of the wide shots. Very interesting stuff. I wouldn't say I enjoyed this film by any means, but it was an experience. But would I call this horror? It's horrific for sure. It's hard to say where the line between just dark cinema and horror is. And that's kind of why we are talking about elevated horror, because where is the line? I feel like it's a great thing not to have genre boundaries within film. And of course this is hard because they want to market it towards a particular demographic. But I do feel like it's more enjoyable when you have no idea what genres it's going to touch on and when they bleed together. Elevated horror has firmly planted itself as a style of telling dark, dramatic, and oftentimes terrifying stories in a way that doesn't keep it locked firmly into one genre. And sometimes that can add a layer of horror because it forces us to go inside the metaphors and to search for meaning. But probably the most unnerving part is that it removes the boundaries of where horror movies end and where real trauma, no matter what it looks like, starts. Of course, this is nothing new. Elevated horror has always existed, and it's always been that argument, is it a horror movie or isn't it? What makes a horror movie? And I think defining it to one particular feeling or certain subgenres doesn't help anyone. It just limits what horror can be. And with this growing trend, hopefully, I want to see directors experiment more with how they approach horror. Let me know your thoughts on this boundless elevated horror and where you stand in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a little bit different. I'm glad we could explore together. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd love to have you here. I do 2 videos every single week talking about horror movies, talking about thrillers, doing deep dives, and giving you some recommendations. Today was really fun, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.